The Moabites were direct descendants of Moab, the son of Lot. The story of Moab begins in a controversial and problematic family context. After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot and his daughters found refuge in a cave in the mountains. Fearing there were no more men left in the world to marry, Lot's daughters intoxicated their father, and one after the other had relations with him. From this incestuous relationship, Moab was born, and he became the progenitor of the Moabite people. This story is recounted in Genesis chapter 19, and from that point on, the Moabites appear as close relatives of the Israelites, although over time, this proximity generated both moments of cooperation and hostility. Geographically, Moab was located on an elevated plateau east of the Dead Sea, in a region favorable to agriculture. The land of Moab was fertile, with significant production of grains and cereals, and it was also famous for its vineyards. Sheep herding was also an essential part of the local economy. This economic prosperity provided the Moabites with a solid base to maintain a well-organized kingdom, with fortresses scattered along their borders to protect the territory from invaders. Despite their kinship with the Israelites, the relationship between the two peoples was marked by tension. The Moabites, on several occasions, became enemies of the Israelites. When the Israelites were on their way to the Promised Land after their exodus from Egypt, the Moabites were already recognized as a powerful nation. However, instead of helping the Israelites, the Moabites refused to welcome them and, worse, tried to use spiritual means to destroy them. The Moabite king Balak hired the prophet Balaam to curse Israel. However, God intervened, and instead of cursing Israel, Balaam ended up blessing the people. In addition, there was a critical episode where the Israelites, camped in the plains of Moab, engaged in immoral relations with Moabite women. This behavior provoked divine wrath, resulting in a plague that killed many Israelites. This event is recounted in Numbers chapter 25 and reinforces the image of Moab as a spiritual and moral adversary of Israel. The religion of the Moabites was marked by pagan practices and cults to fertility deities. The national god of the Moabites was Chemosh, a cruel deity to whom the Moabites offered sacrifices, including, in certain instances, human sacrifices. This pagan practice was condemned by the Israelites, and the biblical prophets frequently mention Moabite idolatry as one of the main reasons for the hostility between the two peoples. Although they were adversaries on several occasions, there were also periods of peaceful coexistence and even cooperation between the Moabites and the Israelites. A notable example of this is the story of Ruth, a Moabite woman who married an Israelite. During a time of famine, Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their two sons left Bethlehem and went to live in Moab. Elimelech's sons married Moabite women, one of whom was Ruth. When Elimelech and his two sons died, Naomi decided to return to Israel, and Ruth, driven by a strong bond of love and loyalty, chose to accompany her. Her famous declaration, "Your people will be my people, and your God my God," is a testimony to her faith and loyalty. Ruth later married Boaz, an Israelite, and became the great-grandmother of King David, thus placing her in the direct lineage of Jesus Christ. This story shows that, despite the tensions between the two peoples, there was also room for personal bonds and family alliances. Ruth, a Moabite, was accepted and honored among the Israelites, showing that God's grace could reach beyond ethnic and political borders. During the period of the Judges, the Moabites oppressed the Israelites for 18 years under King Eglon. This oppression occurred because the Israelites had turned away from God's ways. However, God raised a judge named Ehud, who, through cunning strategy, delivered the Israelites by assassinating King Eglon, as recounted in the book of Judges, chapter 3. During the monarchy, King Saul fought against the Moabites and defeated them in several battles. Later, when David was still young and fleeing from King Saul, he sent his parents to seek refuge in Moab, possibly because of his grandmother Ruth's connection with that people. However, later, as king of Israel, David subdued the Moabites and incorporated them into his kingdom, imposing tributes on them. After King Solomon's death, the kingdom of Israel was divided into two: the northern kingdom, Israel, and the southern kingdom, Judah. In this context, the Moabites took advantage of the situation to regain their independence. However, during the reign of Omri and Ahab, kings of Israel, Moab was once again subdued, being forced to pay heavy tributes. This cycle of domination and rebellion continued, and after Ahab's death, the Moabites rebelled once again against Israel. The reign of Mesha, the Moabite king who rebelled against Israel after Ahab's death, is well documented in the Bible and in an ancient inscription called the Moabite Stone. Mesha went so far as to sacrifice his own son in a desperate ritual to invoke the favor of his god Chemosh against the Israelites. This shocking act caused the retreat of the Israelite troops, revealing the religious fervor and violence of Moabite practices. Later, the Moabites, along with the Ammonites and Edomites, formed a coalition to attack Judah. However, due to confusion among the enemy troops, the attack was thwarted, and the Moabite armies self-destructed without the Israelites needing to fight. Over time, the Moabites were subdued by greater empires. In the 8th century BC, they were dominated by the Assyrians, becoming a tributary people. Even after the fall of Assyria, Moab remained under the dominion of other empires, such as the Babylonians and Persians. The biblical prophets Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel predicted the destruction of Moab as divine judgment for their idolatrous practices and hostility towards Israel. These prophecies were fulfilled over time, and the Moabite people eventually disappeared from history, being assimilated into other nations. Although they were a powerful nation in their time, the Moabites ceased to exist as a distinct entity. Today, Moab survives only in the pages of the Bible and in historical texts. Its legacy is remembered both for its acts of hostility and for moments of peaceful interaction with the Israelites. The story of Ruth in particular stands out as a reminder that, even in times of conflict, bonds of love and faith can transcend divisions between peoples. If you enjoyed learning about the history of the Moabites, subscribe to our channel, leave a like and a comment. This is very important for YouTube to recommend the video to more people. May God be with you all.